Good day, collectors and viewers. Social Distance Warrior is back, and today I've decided to do a collection tour of my own personal collection. You can probably tell right off the bat that I'm a big 3¾ inch fan. So we're going to look in detail today at my collection. I'm going to try to do this video a little bit different as opposed to doing a review. I'm going to try to do it a little bit in sections possibly, and then look at areas where we can explore, potentially making it a little bit interactive by looking at particular vehicles and special features on them, or special interests or ideas I have on figures and on my dioramas. But you can have a look at my room here. I'm trying to give you a nice 360 view of it, and then we're going to go through it in detail. One thing to make note of here, I've been collecting a long time, as I'd imagine a lot of people have. Started collecting probably in 1996, had extra spending cash, and when they released the Power of the Force 2, I was definitely jumped back into Star Wars, and it's definitely been a huge passion of mine and a great escape, as I'd imagine it is for everybody. You know, a lot of hardships or hard times in life growing up, and having Star Wars has always been an escape, and thankfully, you know, I've been able to maintain it through a very understanding wife and family. And yeah, it's a passion for sure, and it's to be explored. I'd like to share it with you guys as well, and we'll go through a full room tour here. Just wanted to give you a close-up view of that, and let's take it away. Start off on the inside door wall here. So on the inside of the door, I've mounted my Star Wars comic packs that we've gathered over the years. So this is stuff that came out in the late 2000s, so probably circa 2006 to 2009, 2010, around there. So I picked up a bunch of comic packs, and of course there's a lot of difference or a lot of intrigue in a lot of these guys, and having spots or places where you can display stuff is very critical in a collection, and sometimes you don't have that luxury. In this case, I found a spot through area or constraints in space to put them in. And there you can see some of the comic packs that are hanging off my wall there. You can see some characters, popular ones through the comics over the years. And again, this is a way for Hasbro to release characters that we normally wouldn't get. And here we are, we get different versions of them, as well as, you know, different color patterns on famous characters through the comic packs. And of course, famous characters from the expanded universe. So I just wanted to show you these guys in detail. I'm not going to go through them each individually, but I'll try and get you a nice glimpse as we go through. So you can see some popular expanded universe characters. Maybe you don't know the characters, so I'll try and give you a bit of a close-up so you can catch their names as we go. But yeah, these are characters that were available through that time, and it was a very special time as a Star Wars collector in the late 2000s there. They were finished with the movies. The only multimedia there was video games or comic books or animated series like the Clone Wars. That's pretty much all you had. There was no more movies, so they definitely concentrated on the collectors and tried to give us options on what we could or couldn't have. So that's the stuff that I have here on the inside of my door. I do have some more comic packs over here. I'm going to take you over. Just over here on the wall, just so you can see the rest of the stuff that I do have here. So some of these are a little more scarce. It was always hard to tell what you'd be able to get, what you wouldn't be able to get, like that Exar Kun set there. Very difficult to track down, very limited supply. If you were lucky like me to purchase it from an online retailer by pre-ordering because you like to get every single obscure different character, then you were in luck and received one. If you didn't, then you're looking at the secondary market and it's inflated prices, and you may or may not be attracted to buying something like that. But that's the comic packs that I have hanging on my wall. Next up over here, we can see we have Anakin's Jedi Starfighter hanging off the wall, and I just have that hanging there with fish wire. But you can see he's taking a nice nosedive, and if we go in close, you can see Anakin is in there piloting that Jedi Starfighter. Some vintage collection figures behind him there, as well as some other characters from the prequels and from other Star Wars multimedia. But I like to display my vintage collection figures on the wall here because it gives it a nice display. So I'm just going to take that down just to show you those guys on the wall. As we work our way down here to the bottom, those are the figures on that inside wall beside the door. And you can see some Clone Wars figures there. There's some Force Unleashed Evolution set. And then I have these Clone Wars figures and other figures here on the sides, and these little bubbles. These are pretty neat bubbles that you can store your figures in. They're a lot better than putting them in sandwich bags and then risking them deteriorating over the years. These are supposed to hold together and not cause any acid issues or anything on your figures. Also managed to display my original vintage figures here as well. Instead of having them stored away, I just didn't want to leave them out, especially ones with accessories that could easily get lost. I like to display them in there, so I found a way to get them mounted with little pegs that you can see there, the little pins holding them up. And I have them all across the wall over here, and they're all original ones. There's no repo weapons over there. Everything's original. There's Darth Vader there on the inside. We can see him. We'll work our way down and see who else is with him. Stormtrooper, Chewbacca, original Han with a small head. There's a Jawa, R5-D4, and so on. We work our way down over here, but I have them displayed in there so I can always take a glimpse at them and get some nostalgia from growing up. I do have some more of them here on the inside of the closet as well. We'll work our way down just to show you what I do have. And yeah, that's a lot of the vintage figures on the inside part of what used to be a closet over here, and that's where we keep our Star Wars stuff. Vintage ones anyway. Of course, there's some more of them here on the opposite side of the closet entrance frame. Yeah, these bubbles come in handy. They hold your figures really well. There's Luke there with the 2 different paint jobs on his Bespin figure. And of course, Bib Fortuna, and he's got that weapon that he's holding in the Book of Boba Fett where they paid homage to that original figure. And we work our way down here, we can see some more vintage figures. The rest of the ones that I have here on the outside of the closet door. And again, they display really well. It's nice to be able to have them in the collection here. Again, I ran out of room. I have some space constraints from collecting for a long time, but I have them positioned there on the walls. So here's an interesting set that I wasn't able to pick up till many years later. So when they started the Power of the Force 2, the first figures they released before releasing anything brand new, sculpt-wise, is this original Classic Edition 4-pack. I was never able to see this up in Canada over here. I ended up getting this years later from somebody's collection, but I was always fascinated by it. So it comes with a Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Darth Vader sculpt. They come with those Topps wide vision cards, and I don't think it had really good fan appeal when it first came out. I think it was pretty much a peg warmer down in the States because people wanted new figures and they were stuck with this, but I always wanted to have that original pack of figures because mine were so beat up that I grew up with as a kid, and getting anything brand new Star Wars at the time was awesome. And here's the back of the package, and you can see the new figures are on the back there, as well as the vehicles, which were basically just the original sculpts repainted to look a little bit more realistic. But yeah, that was a set that came out back in '95, and that was the first new Star Wars toys that were released in the store. If we look at the outside of the closet entrance here, you can see I do have those vintage figures moving around. And if you look inside the closet, you'll notice I have my vintage collection, the modern ones, nicely displayed on the wall there. So we're going to take a look at those guys. Up top of them there are a bunch of Black Series figures that I have that I haven't had room to display, but of course I collect them. I have some love for those guys as well. So the Black Series stuff is up there on top. I have some of the newer stuff there in the front. There's some Republic Commandos, and then of course I love the artwork on the outside of these guys. You can easily see which character it is, but that's what I have on top there on the top shelf in the closet. As we work our way down, we can notice we have some vintage collection figures there. On the inside over here, I have some of the, Han Solo movie figures, some of the Force Awakens figures, Last Jedi figures, as well as the Rise of Skywalker figures. So they're on the inside of the wall there. There's some other figures there, of course, from the video games, Expanded Universe. And then there's some of the Ralph McQuarrie stuff there in the back. And there's a set there from Disney World, as well as the 3-pack there from the new Jedi game that's coming out. And there's R2-D2 in his collector case that turns into that Episode 1 playset. Since I brought up the R2 playset slash storage case, this was an Episode 1 release. And I love this item just because it displays really well. And it's a nice little diorama for your Episode 1 figures. I used to love displaying my Qui-Gon and Obi-Wans in there earlier on when it first came out. So let's pop that thing open just to show you. So when you open this guy up, you see he's got that nice frame silhouette of R2-D2. Over here you can store your figures, and it does have little dividers depending on the size of your characters that you can display. It does have little spots here where you can store your weapons inside on both sides. Okay, there's some pit droids stuck in there. And of course this side over here is a playset. So this thing pulls out over here. If you pull that out, it comes out nicely. It's nice and sturdy. It holds together. And you'll notice what it is. It's from the beginning of Episode 1 when they're on that Trade Federation ship, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and they're looking to speak to those Nemridians about stopping the blockade on Naboo. And this is where they get ambushed and they have their battle. So it's a nice little playset. It's basically just a stand that comes out, but it's got that nice flooring. It did come with a destroyer droid as well, the one that's in ball-shaped form that can roll down into battle. And it's got these nice doors here. The doors do open, so you can pull that open side to side on each side there to go through. And you can see inside there where Qui-Gon was trying to cut the door down or melt the door down to get through to those Nemridians that were on the other side. So that's a nice little playset. If we move our way down underneath here, you can see there is a vent area there, and that's supposed to be the part where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan jump down and they're hiding, and they go into an AT and onto the surface of Naboo. But I just wanted to quickly show you guys that that's a pretty neat playset and storage area, and you can play with your figures really nicely on there. And it was a very cheap item, and you can still probably pick it up for a relatively good price. Over here in the middle of the closet is my vintage collection figures, and I've tried to display them with the Return of the Jedi ones on top on the first few rows. Try to keep that uniform. You can see some more single figures running down, loose ones in between there. But that's the figures and how I've got them displayed. And yes, behind there is a really tacky 1970s wallpaper that was on that wall before we moved into the house. And it kind of grew on me, so it stayed up there. It's got a nice little retro feel to it. So I've left it on there. But yeah, these are the figures. And we've jumped from Jedi to Empire Strikes Back figures over here as we move our way down. And I just love these card backs. So I had to have some of this stuff carded, and it just turns out that it ends up being very popular and pricey now, but that wasn't my intent when I collected them. I just love to have stuff on the card backs. And so that's all the figures that I have on that back wall over there. Over here in the middle, I have that TIE Fighter that was released from the Solo movie. It's a little bit smaller in scale, but it's a really nice looking TIE Fighter. So if there's a chance you can pick that up, it's probably a worthwhile investment or purchase for yourself to have in your collection. There's a Jedi Starfighter, that's Mace Windu's, that came with that Rise of Boba Fett pack, along with that Slave One that Jango Fett had. So it was the first time we had that big mold of Slave One. It's a really nice vehicle. And in the back there's a U-Wing. And then in back of that U-Wing there, we have that Lucas collector set. So there's George Lucas and his 2 daughters and his son. And those are appearances they made in Revenge of the Sith, in case you didn't know, along with George Lucas. They made numerous appearances, and that was I believe it was a fan club exclusive. I had to order that online to pick it up from Hasbro. But yeah, that was a pretty neat set to get. And of course, I have some more vintage collection figures running up that wall. So we'll work our way up there just to show you what's on the wall there. Again, some stuff from Solo, from Phantom Menace, from Clone Wars, etc. And then some more vintage collection figures on top there. And then there's that George Lucas figure, York Sakul from Celebration 2, that I was able to snag in person way back in 2002. I did want to show some of the more vintage collection figures that I have on the outside of that closet wall, and we'll work our way on the wall in a second. But over here is a bunch of droids that I have. So some of these are Build-A-Droids from the Build-A-Droid set. Some of them were from 2-packs, etc. The backgrounds that they come with, those are from the die-cast figures that were the 3 3/4 inch scale from a few years back, around 2015, 2016. They ended up going on clearance. There were some original trilogy ones, and then there were some Force Awakens ones, and I love the backgrounds, the backdrops on them. So I picked them up and I use it to display these droids on. So pretty neat display for these guys here, and it comes in handy because it's got that nice Star Wars background. On this wall over here, I got Anakin Skywalker on his pod racer from episode 1. And next to him here, we have Sebulba on his pod racer from episode 1. So these were neat sets that came out along with a ton of merchandise in episode 1. And I was able to pick that up on clearance because there was so much of that stuff out and it was expensive at the time. So you had to kind of pick and choose what you wanted. Behind them there on the wall, you can see some vintage original trilogy collection figures on card and in those blister packs. Love those guys. That was the stuff that started it back in 2004, 2005. As we work our way down here, we see I have a bit of a episode 3 or Revenge of the Sith display with Obi-Wan and Boga, and then Obi-Wan standing on that platform when he battled Anakin on Mustafar, and there's one of the creature trainers there as well. And then there's that other droid that Anakin stands on when he's having the lightsaber duel with Obi-Wan. It's a pretty neat set. It's nice to have. Here's some medical droids. These were all like single releases that came out. 3 of them, 3 different ones. And then Darth Vader on the table when he becomes Darth Vader at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Now, that's not the Vader that came with the set. That is the ultimate version of that Revenge of the Sith one that was a Black Series release in 3.75 inch scale. I believe around 2013, 2014, around there. It's a great figure. It's got ball joints on the legs, arms, the head moves nicely, and it's got a really nice sculpt on the head, and that is his appearance from at the end when he screams no when he finds out that Padme's dead. So next to him over here, General Grievous on his wheel bike. I love that wheel bike. That is not the Grievous that came with the wheel bike. That is a Clone Wars version of Grievous, and I've had him on this bike for years. He just sits very well on there. You're able to articulate him nicely to sit on that wheel bike to battle Obi-Wan Kenobi. Behind them there, you can see there's some more vintage collection figures. These ones from The Mandalorian. And then as we work our way down over here, there's some figures from Obi-Wan and from Clone Wars. And then I have a nice little display there from episode 4. So there's a bunch of Sand Troopers. I love that dirty one. That's one of my favorites. And there's one from the Lost Line over here that was also a vintage collection release that's got that droid hanging over his shoulder, which is a neat one. There's a Dewback. There's some more Sand Troopers there on the back. And then here's that vintage collection land speeder with Luke and 3PO and Ben. R2 laying on the back like he did in the movie. And then, of course, some more Sand Troopers. And another Dewback over here on the side to complement it. And, of course, there's some more vintage collection figures there in the back. But you can see it's a nice little display from that movie. So as we work our way down over here, we got some more vintage collection figures there on the wall. Next to them there, I have some pod racers. So I have that on a display. That was from a cinema scene that came with Jar Jar. And I use that to display all my pod racers standing together there, including Anakin Skywalker. So that was a neat little scene that you can put them all together on and use there. There's some Power of the Jedi figures, R2 and a Sand Trooper. And then I have probably one of my favorite pieces in my collection, probably the last thing that I'd ever get rid of, the big Millennium Falcon, displayed right over here in the front. And it's a thing that grabs your attention right when you come into the room, and we're going to look at that in some detail too. So I said I'd like to make it a little interactive, so we're going to look at this vehicle here, the Millennium Falcon, in detail. So this thing is dubbed the BMF, the Big Millennium Falcon. So Hasbro decided to release super versions of certain vehicles back in the late 2000s, and in 2008, one of our prayers was finally answered, and that's an ultimate version of the Millennium Falcon, which is what we see over here. And it was for a pretty good price point at the time. I think it was something around 150 or 180 Canadian, but you probably couldn't find this thing for less than $500-600 today if it was re-released, just because of the price increases and labor increases and such. But this is a fantastic piece here. We're going to look at it in some detail. So on the front of it here, I just have a few blast effects sitting on the front there. There are missiles that go into these spots over here. I have them stored away just because I didn't want to have them springing out and getting lost. But every one of these buttons over here does shoot them out. And there is some sound effects there you can see when you do press them. I do have some Minox sitting on there. You might be wondering what are those creatures sitting on there? That's Minox chewing the wires. These were from single release figures. This is from a Chewy from the Saga collection. It's a Minox Chewy, a Minox Hunt. And it comes with this translucent bluish Minox. Pretty neat one there. And he's got a little suction cup, so you could stick that onto the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon on the window if you wanted to, so you can scare Princess Leia like they did in the movie. But I have mine sitting over there, and then I have another one here. This was from a cinema scene from years back in The Power of the Force 2, and of course you can see he doesn't have the suction cup on his mouth, but he does have that exact look that he did when he landed on the window with that really nasty looking suction cup face. He's almost like a space bat, but that's what these Minox are, and I have them, both versions, sitting there on the front. As we work our way over here, we can see that the cockpit of the Falcon is there. This thing opens up, so you lift that right up there, and you can see we have our famous co-pilots inside there. There's Han and Chewie, both of them in their pilot gear. So Han's got the pilot gear on, Chewbacca does too. Those are unique figures that came with those accessories, and you have lots of room inside there in the cockpit. We'll just turn that over here to the side so you can see what it looks like. They have, handles that they can hold on to there on the front. And then they have some passenger seats here in the back as well, where you can seat Luke or Leia or 3PO, anybody that you want there. And the chairs do move. They are adjustable on the floor somewhat, side to side. So you do have that option to show them in the cockpit. And of course, there is some light up effects in there. I don't know if I can get it on the first shot here, but yeah, there you go. So that's pretty neat. So you have light up effects on the Falcon, and the cockpit's got the lights in there as well. That's a very awesome feature. It's such an awesome ship. So that's the cockpit. We're going to close that up, look our way around to the side. So on the side over here is where we have the landing gear. The landing gear does drop down over there. They've disguised the buttons really well on this thing here, so it doesn't get in the way. You don't have the buttons becoming an eyesore. In this case, that button is part of the aesthetic of the look on the side panel there. When you press it, you can see that landing drop right down there. So you have that nice release, and you have the nice sound effect on there. And I'm not sure if you notice that there is a lighting effect there. So if we lift that back up just for a second, I'll try and show you the lights that drop up from underneath as well. And you can see they reflect onto the ground there too. So a really neat item there, really neat action feature on this vehicle. So there is panels that cover up the whole inside of the Falcon here, so you can just see the outside of the ship, but I have that displayed where it's open because it gives it a nice diorama piece here. This thing's not just a ship, it's a big playset. Here you see on the medical bed, you have Luke Skywalker laying, trying to figure out what happened when Darth Vader told him he's his dad from the end of Empire Strikes Back. So that's the Luke that's there. One awesome feature about this Luke Skywalker, let me just show you that figure first so you can have a look at him. He's got a robe on there, and then under the robe doesn't have a shirt on. I think he's just in underwear underneath their pants and shirtless. But that's the Luke Skywalker that came in that set. I'm pretty sure it's just a Kit Bash figure of the one that was released at the Vintage Original Trilogy Collection that had the, Tatooine Farm Boy Luke outfit on. Except now they've made him as part of the end of Empire Strikes Back. If we open up his sleeve here, we can see that he's got his hand repaired. He got the wiring in his hand there. Let's see, there we go. We can get a good lighting on there, but that's molded right onto his wrist. So it makes him a unique figure compared to the other Luke Skywalkers that we have. So we'll put him on the side for a second. We'll look in here at the medical bed. So inside that medical bed, there's an apparatus there that goes over Luke's hand from the end of Empire Strikes Back, this thing over here. It's like a small Bacta-tank for the hand when he was healing after Darth Vader cut it off. Now this came with a completely different figure from years before. It's a Bespin Luke from the Saga collection. He had a removable hand, and he came with this gadget that goes over the hand to reenact that scene. But lo and behold, years later, I think it was about 5 or 6 years later, we get this big Millennium Falcon, and if you still had that accessory, it never came with the Falcon, but if you had that accessory, they actually molded a spot to put it in there. You can see the little hole, and you can actually attach this thing in there, and it's designed to be as part of your diorama here. You got rewarded for having Star Wars stuff from years before. I found that awesome. I love finding these little Easter egg things in there, and I love to share them with you. So there's R2-D2, and behind R2-D2 there's one of the gunner stations, so we can see the gunner station there on the top. And if you turn this thing side to side, I'm not going to do it right now, it makes sound effects. And when these little buttons touch the side ends, the missiles launch out of the front of it there, so that's pretty neat. And you can see the gunner station is facing up, so you can put Han or Luke, whoever you want, facing in that gunner station. You can see there's a little window underneath there, so there's a window on top and a window underneath there behind R2-D2 as well. So next to R2-D2 over here, I have some accessories there that I've gathered with other figures. So there is a welding mask that came with a Vintage Collection Han Solo. There's Luke's T-16 Skyhopper, which is pretty neat. And then, of course, there's a welding torch there as well. Here's a look of the Falcon from the opposite side there. So there's just a sticker showing you where you go into the cockpit there. But it's nicely detailed. You can see how nice the flooring is. I have some more accessories on the opposite side over here. There's a welding torch there as well, a couple different ones, as well as Luke's grappling hook. I have it stored in there. There's even a mask when they went to fight or look for the Minox. That's Chewie's mask hanging over there as part of the accessories that they've used in the Falcon. But yeah, the corridor there is really neat too. On the floor, you'll notice there's a little bit of a tab there. So our famous heroes, this is where they hid when they were pulled in by the tractor beam on the second Death Star. That's one of the smuggling bays that they have on the bottom there. That's where they were hiding and couldn't find them when they boarded that ship. On the opposite side over here, I did want to show you as well, there is a couple of doors there and you're wondering, do they open? The answer is yes. Let's just move R2-D2 out of the way momentarily. And let's try to open that with the camera going. So if you just pull that door open there, you'll notice that there's a small compartment in there. I have a luggage in there for the figures. Storage container, but there's not much in there. It doesn't go in too far. It's just a small little area. They never had this hatch or this part of the Falcon opening up. It would have been nice if they did all the way around, but I'm sure they needed to have the electronics sitting somewhere. But it's nice that they had that extra storage area so you could put some supplies in there, or you can hide some figures in there if you wanted to put 3PO or Chewie on a timeout, or R2, that's where they go. Okay, so working our way to the other side of the Falcon, we have C-3PO and Chewbacca playing on the Dejarik table over there. And again, there's some electronic features. When you push a button, it lights up and they talk about how you don't want to upset a Wookiee because you'll pull his arms out of his sockets. So that's that bench there that they're sitting on. You can see Chewbacca's all proud with his hands behind his head. I love that figure. That was a Power of the Jedi figure that they released that's just molded that way. There's Han Solo. He's sitting on his chair over here. Talking to Ben Kenobi, telling him about how he's been from one side of the galaxy to another and he's never heard of any hokey religion, just a bunch of tricks and nonsense. And Obi-Wan's telling him that's not the case. I'm teaching Luke Skywalker over here. So there's Obi-Wan there as well. And then there's Luke over there with his blast shield down and that training probe hanging directly in front of him over here. And you can move that training probe just by turning this thing side to side, so that wheels and deals back and forth. There is a area behind Luke there that doesn't open. It's just a window there, but it's not a door that opens, but it's there for a purpose to tell you there's some more to this ship than meets the eye. So there is also another panel there on the floor underneath Luke Skywalker. Let's just move him there momentarily that we can look at, where we have another storage area. Sorry, Ben, we're going to get you out of the way there as well. And we're going to pop that open just to have a look at what's underneath. Bear with me for one sec. So another storage or compartment area, or different spot of the Falcon from Empire Strikes Back, where Han Solo has to go down there and fix the hyperdrive. So that's that area over there. On this side of the Falcon here, we'll notice that there's the dish. There's Luke training with the probe. Over here, you'll notice a few more buttons, and as well as a dial or knob that you turn over here. And if you turn that back and forth, you can see that it turns the radar dish there, as well as the training probe for Luke to train on, so that it's not in the way, and it gives you a nice play feature. One more thing I wanted to show you here on the side. So just like the other side drops the landing gear, this one over here hides a nice little secret. So if you pull this side up here, it's a nice little sound effects that pops on. You'll notice that there's an escape pod inside there. So that escape pod is a nice little added feature that we are unaware of on the Falcon. It comes right out from the ship, and it's a really awesome designed looking escape pod. So you can see it's got a nice window on there. It's nicely detailed. There are guns attached on this thing, so it's not defenseless when it's flying, and you can just push these levers forward for those guns to come forward there. It does have a missile that shoots out from underneath here as well, and there's a button that depresses that, but I have it removed just so I don't get it lost. So extra stuff on there. It does open as well, which we'll look at in one sec. So here's the escape pod with the hatch open there, so you can put your figure in. You see I have the missile sitting in there, and it's got a nice design there. They even painted the inside of this, and there's even sticker decals that you're able to put inside there, but you can see how awesomely detailed and how much love was put into this. And this was the original designer that did this Falcon, that did the original one back in the day. So a lot of love was put into this thing, and that's the escape pod we have for the Millennium Falcon. So underneath the Falcon, we can see it holds the landing gear there. So the landing feet, you can also see one of the gunner station guns sitting there through the bottom. When you turn that back and forth, that one turns back and forth as well. So just wanted to show you a quick detail there of it underneath. Just over here in the front, we'll see there's one more gun that does pop down there. This is the gun that drops down and attacks the Imperials on Hoth when they're trying to escape, when they're setting up that ion cannon. This thing drops down from the Falcon and he attacks. And again, I removed that missile, but it's a nice little feature. You have a whole bunch of different scenes from a whole bunch of different Star Wars movies that you can reenact with the Millennium Falcon. I want to show you one more thing on the back of the Falcon here. So the light up feature, when the jets turn on and it flies away, they've actually added lights in there as well as sound effects. So if you push the button over here on the side, you can hear and see the Falcon fly away, and it even flickers and it heads into light speed. How neat is that? One last look at the Falcon with the covers on. So you can see this is what it looks like when you cover up the inside. You can see it's a fully functioning vehicle display piece, whether you want to have it with the covers on or the covers off. You can't even tell that it comes apart. That's how well it's put together. So again, it's a centerpiece. It's prize collection piece for me. I'm sure for a lot of people, and I just love this ship. I think so much love was put into it. I don't think they're ever going to top something like this. To the Falcon here, I have a Star Wars Unleashed Boba Fett. So this is way before the Book of Boba Fett, where we finally see Boba Fett come out of the Sarlacc pit. This was an imagined scene of Boba Fett coming out of the Sarlacc pit, and it's basically a sculpted figure with very minimal pulsability, but it's an awesome display piece. I just love that Boba Fett with the tentacles wrapped around his leg. As we move our way down over here, I do have some more Star Wars stuff. I do have a Star Wars Droids Boba Fett. So this is the Boba Fett in the Droids theme that came out in 2022 in the color scheme that we see him in, the cartoon series. It's the Black Series 6-inch version. I just love this figure. It just brings back nostalgia, and you can see how nice it is in the packaging of there. So that's our Boba Fett from the animated series. Next to him there, I do have a Boba Fett on original. It's in an acrylic here. On an original Empire Strikes Back card back, you can see that it says W449. That was a store called Woolworths at the time. And there's a Boba Fett card, and then there's a Boba Fett, a vintage one there with his blaster. A very good version of him. He's not played with at all, which is interesting, and I have him stuck inside there. It's a prize piece for me. And on the back here, you can see the other figures that were available as well at the time on the back of that card back, as well as play sets. So how neat is that to have? That's a nice little time capsule piece. Here I have some of my vintage collection stuff. Some of the stuff in packaging, some are just boxes, some is in the packaging. I do have the Blue Leader X-Wing, as well as Poe Dameron's X-Wing from the Rise of Skywalker. That's an awesome one. That was built really well. And then, of course, Luke Skywalker's X-Wing fighter as well, that came out from a few years ago back. Here's a Disney Parks droid set from 2022. You'll notice that there's that droid that was from the lava scene there where they were trying to get out in The Mandalorian at the end of season 1. They released him here at Disney Parks. There's one of the Republic droids from the ship, the prison ship, and of course a few other droids from the show as well. So that came as a 4-pack. It's a pretty neat one. They haven't released these figures separately, so it's nice to be able to pick that up. But there's the names of the droids, and it's a worthy set if you're a droid lover to pick up from the Disney store. Next to the Millennium Falcon here, I have my Rebel ship hangar the small little diorama piece that I have, you can see with our vehicles and pilots on. So you can see a bunch of characters over there with droids. One of the transports there, transporting Biggs Darklighter. There's Luke's X-Wing. I love that Luke's X-Wing. That's the Vintage Collection one. I had a few ladders that I had from different sets as well that I was able to put on there that you see in the movie. On the back, I put that R2-D2. That's not an R2-D2 that came with this set. It's an R2-D2 from a 2-pack with Luke. And that's an awesome one. That's the one that got shot up and blown up by Darth Vader. Almost died when Luke was on the trench run. So you can see how nicely detailed this R2-D2 is. And I have them sitting in the back there like they just landed back from that Battle of Yavin. Luke's inside there. That Luke is the Power of the Jedi Luke with the scope there in the front. There's 10 Num, 9 Num, Porkins, and a bunch of other guys there in the front. We'll work our way over here. There's another one of the droids, a Build-A-Droid there. There's an A-Wing, but that's an A-Wing from The Last Jedi with the pilot inside there, but it fits in nicely with this diorama piece. And of course, there's some more droids there. Some more pilots. There's George Lucas, Jorg Sakul there in the back. There's a Y-Wing from the Saga Collection with the pilot, and it came with a droid as well, and the droid is came in a separate version as well as one that's sitting in the back, but this one here is not removable. You can just turn them side to side. And of course there's some more pilots there. There's an A-Wing pilot, and there's Dutch Vander there as well. And then over here in the back we have Biggs and his droid that was from an X-Wing set as well, an Evolution set pilot there. And yeah, that's my diorama there for my ships sitting next to the Falcon. So next to them over here we have the Lars Homestead with a Tusken and his Bantha there in the front. So that Bantha, I love that thing. That was a Power of the Force 2 release. Still stands the test of time, really neat. This was a neat set. So this is a Lars Homestead set that has a base, that has the dome as well. And inside there's a table. The table is connected to this little flimsy plastic bottom piece here, but you can't get rid of it because it just goes together. It came with this really neat, as a re-release of Emperor, but this really neat figure that's exclusive to the set, and it's a Womp Rat. So we actually get a detailed Womp Rat, and you can see how ugly he looks and how detailed he is as well in that set. There's no articulation on him. He just came with that set, but I loved it. I had to open it up just so I can put a Womp Rat in there, especially when Luke talked about bullseyeing Womp Rats when he was going after the second Death Star. So that's the Lars Homestead that we have there. Behind the X-Wings there, you'll notice the purchase of the droids. I do have these droids. A lot of them were releases with Jawas. So that, droid there came with a Jawa. The one beside it came with a Jawa. There's R2 with the motivator stuck on him there. When the Jawas captured him, of course, R5-D4 next to him. And then some more of the droids. There's that Vintage Collection Power Droid that came out a few years back. It's awesome. Fits in there nicely. And then, of course, a whole bunch of different Jawas that I have in the collection that have come out over the years. And they just look really, really great together, including that original vintage one. I think he still stands out compared to everybody else with those cloth goods. There's a Ronto there in the back with the Jawa that it came with. And, of course, a moisture evaporator in the back there. And, of course, there is a re-release of the Jawa Sandcrawler that was a previous exclusive a few years back. And then I have a few Clone Wars Jawas there on top as well. So as we move our way up over here, there's a Mimban Stormtrooper. There's Luke Skywalker. He was from a battle pack, so it's not the Vintage Collection one. He's slightly modified. He doesn't have that Stormtrooper belt like the Vintage Collection one did. Behind him over there, there's a Rodian from Episode 1. And then, of course, our Sandstorm scene. Chewie, Luke, and Han Solo. There's R3PO from Empire Strikes Back, the scene. There's a Tusken Raider here in the front from the Saga Collection. There's a 3PO there with the escape pod. And of course I have some Tusken Raiders over here in the front with that Mossif from the Vintage Collection. These guys over here, and an Episode 1 Tusken Raider there as well. And you can see how awesome that Mossif dog looks over there. In the back there we have one of the special edition droids that was put in for the Star Wars Special Edition, and then a young version of Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru from Attack of the Clones, but they come in handy as well. They can just re-release those as part of the Obi-Wan series because they appeared in there. And then a really rusted up C-3PO, and then a figure there from the Star Tours ride as well. So that's the middle scene there. we work our way up over here. We do have some figures from a battle pack exclusive set, a bunch of different stormtroopers. I don't remember the name of these guys, but yeah, you can see they're all unique. They have their own heads, own sculpts. Behind them there is that an Ultimate Emperor I love. He's not an articulated one, but he came out as part of that Last Jedi line in a 3-pack. And then there's Darth Vader and Luke battling each other there as well. Here we have a 2 vintage collection Han Solo and Luke Skywalker figures, ultimate ones from a few years back. There's another Sand Trooper there. And then in the back there we have the diorama from the Saga collection. It's 2 pieces that connected together. And it comes with the Luke and Han in one set, and then Chewbacca and Leia in the other. And you can see Chewie is trying to escape, and Leia's holding that big pole inside there that we see again in The Mandalorian years later. But that is my middle scene there with these guys. Just on top of the Stormtroopers and that trash compactor diorama, we have a vintage collection Princess Leia in Endor gear. And I stuck this one with the one that came from the Power of the Force 2 with that Millennium minted coin. I just find it's a nice display piece there. There's a deluxe Boba Fett with his giant rocket. And we can see some Jangos there in the back. Shadow Stormtrooper there in the back as well. Stormtrooper and another, I think it's another Jango Fett. And then this one here is a Luke Skywalker with a smiley face. Luke Skywalker here was a Comic-Con exclusive. They initially had a preview of a bunch of Star Wars figures, and there was a Luke Skywalker with a smiley face. That's this guy over here. See if I can get a good picture of him where you can see him. And it was supposed to be the battle of Yavin when they celebrated at the end. And he never got released, and the fans saw him in the picture and they said, why won't you release that character? We want to have him in our collection. And then Hasbro came through and made him a convention exclusive, and he came with this ladder piece. So it's the first time you could get that ladder when he's walking down the X-Wing or climbing down the X-Wing to greet Han and Leia, celebrating. And he's got a really interesting smile on there. So it was a neat figure, and he came with his blister box as well. I've never taken mine out. It's the same figure as the other ones you have, but it's a nice little display piece, and you can see him smiling there on the back. He looks like a really young character, but doesn't really resemble Luke Skywalker, but just a nice little niche action figure with that smile. Behind the Leia there, we can see there's a bunch of clone troopers I have displayed. There's a Swamp Speeder over here. I love that vehicle as well, with some more clone troopers sitting on it. There's Anakin Skywalker sitting on the speeder from Attack of the Clones there, and if that's an Evolutions, Anakin sitting in the back. And then of course some more clone troopers there in the back. There's some R2-D2s there behind them as well. I try to keep the figures together so when I have to do reviews, I can have them and easily find them. So we work our way down over here. We can see some more R2-D2s there on the wall. On the inside of the wall here, we can see the vintage original trilogy collection Boba Fett. And then we can see some more vintage collection figures there, Anakin and Jango. And then I have a bunch of different Padmes there, some awesome ones. There's from the end of episode 1, the celebration one, where she has that orb that she's holding. And of course, a whole bunch of different Padmes. We'll have to do a review on her someday as well, but they made a lot of different versions of her. And we can see General Grievous and a bunch of the Jedis and stuff that have come out over the years. So this is my Attack of the Clones / prequel area here. So you can see some more figures here on the wall. There's an animated Anakin from the Clone Wars micro series, and then there's Anakin on his swoop bike. I love this figure over here. He's not the most posable character, but that bike is really nice, and you can always take that and put a more articulated version of Anakin on it. Underneath him there is another San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Darth Vader with holographic Emperor. Let's take a look at that. So here's that set, the San Diego Comic-Con one. It's called Disturbance in the Force, and it comes with a super articulated Darth Vader. Now he's a figure we've released before. He was released on single card and stuff before, but he comes exclusive on his little kneeling pad there with the hologram version of Emperor Palpatine from the special edition. So you can see the Palpatine's got a fully detailed face on there as well. It's a really awesome set, and it's got an electronic feature on here. So there's a little area here where you can press the button. If you stick your finger in there and press it, you get a full dialogue speech with Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine.
My master. There is a great disturbance in the Force. I have felt it.
So next to them is a General Grievous from the Clone Wars animated series. I love this figure. I love the whole design. He was so fearsome in that micro series. Awesome figure. Underneath him there's a metallic chrome Boba Fett as well. That was released. That's probably that's the first version of Boba Fett with a removable helmet. Boba Fett comes displayed in this really neat display case here, and he's a die-cast figure, and he does have a really cool revealing feature, so we're just going to pull it off just to show you there. It's got a Star Wars logo there on top. We're just going to be careful taking that off, and then we can see we have a 3¾ inch version of Boba Fett in there as well, and I love this piece because Boba Fett's my favorite character. But you can see he's displayed nicely on there. He does have screws that hold his feet down. You can remove them to get this figure off as well. And one thing that's awesome about him is that his helmet comes off for the very first time. So we take that helmet off, and we got a Temuera Morrison version of Boba Fett underneath. That's the very first time that we saw Boba Fett without his mask on. So they started really selling that feature, especially after Attack of the Clones, and we find out that he is indeed the son, unaltered clone of Jango Fett. So they kept that look over here with Boba Fett, and that's a nice little tidbit of information in case you want to pick this figure up. Now, he does come in this silver version, and there is a colored version as well, but this is the one that I have here, and it's a neat figure you can add to your collection. So working our way in front there, we have the Queen's Royal Starship over here. So this was a giant playset of the Queen's ship from Episode 1, and it was a centerpiece to the whole Episode 1 collection. And we can see in front here we have a cinema scene with Darth Maul and Qui-Gon having their first battle in front, and Anakin ready to run away. And of course we have our figures here on the inside as well. I have taken the top part of this vehicle off. I just covered it here with the stand, but you can see if I take that stand up, you can see where the top part of the vehicle plugs back in, just so I can display it, because it kind of hangs out over awkwardly and you can't really see anything or get close to it. So I just have it removed there. There's Jar Jar sticking his tongue out. Now there's an overdue figure, Captain Panaka. We need him in the vintage collection, Hasbro, if you are paying attention. Here's some seats for our characters over here, for our heroes. There's our very first pig warmer, Rick Oley, sitting in the front there. Anakin Skywalker there beside him. And of course there's Padme and C-3PO in his naked form. Down here in the bottom part of the vehicle, we can see Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and as well as some droids there as well, ready to go. And over here we can see R2-D2 is taking the elevator lift up, and he's ready to make his prominent appearance in Episode 1 and show us who R2-D2 is. There's the hyperspace component there in the back, and you can see this one's blown up and it can flip around to the clean side. So once you repair it, you can fly away and escape from our rebels. Over here, if we move to the front part of the ship, this part lifts up, and inside here we can see we have Queen Amidala with her throne, and she's talking to one of her handmaidens there in the front part there. And then there is the bridge that lowers down here all the way to the ground so you can interact. The front part of the ship holds a nice little secret as well, just like the Millennium Falcon did. Let's have a look at that. The front part of the ship, the nose just lifts up, and you can see underneath here we have an escape pod. So we have another escape pod for our heroes to escape with, and there's a missile there. I have it sitting in the back, but you can put a droid here in the back, so it can have a protocol droid helping it escape, and the missile loads in there to the front. And then you can see underneath here how it sits inside that area. So it's a nice little feature that they've added. This part does open up here just to hold the figure. Let's just pop that open to show you. There is a cockpit there for the character to sit in, and of course for the droid to sit in as well. And that's how they can escape from the ship in case they get attacked and aren't able to repair that hyperdrive unit. Next to the Queen ship here, I have a flash speeder sitting here on the floor, as well as a vulture droid over here in fight form. So he's in his droid form over here. There's an AAT there in the back, which we'll look at in some detail in a bit. There's an ARC 170 over here. I love this vehicle. I have that hanging with some fish string there as well. And if we go up close to that, I love this one with a double cockpit. So you can have a clone pilot in the front, and you can have a clone pilot there in the back, and then there's the droid there on top. And then if you move the camera over here to the back, we can see there's a pilot there in the back as well, in that back gun. So this thing's fully protected and detailed, and I love that vehicle from the beginning opening scenes of Revenge of the Sith, because it reminds me of an X-Wing, because the wings open up like one. Here we have a spider droid, and there's a Hailfire droid sitting next to it. There's a snail droid in the back. There's a Trade Federation tank with some battle droids on it, and of course here's a Jedi scene over here fighting the battle droids from the end of Attack of the Clones. And I just love this whole scene here. There's the Acklay. There's a crab droid, which wasn't part of that scene, but I've kind of fixed him in there. And then there's Obi-Wan fighting that crab droid. Try and get a nice close-up. There's Kit Fisto. There's a bunch of guys. Coleman Trebler there in the back. There's some Genosians in the back there. We see the Reek. So he's in there as well with the battle droids. This thing over here is pretty neat too. This is from a battle pack. So that's supposed to be for Obi-Wan Kenobi when he gets captured by Dooku and he's trying to seduce him over to the dark side. There's a Jedi 3-pack, so this is a pretty neat one. We get the Rodian re-released again in super articulated form. I do have him, but we don't have these other 2 Jedis here. That one's awesome there. The blue one there and the blue alien there in the middle is pretty neat. There's Anakin there in the back. There's Shaak Ti. There's the Nexu and Queen Amidala here on the top, trying to keep herself from getting eaten by that Nexu. There's Aayla Secura. There's a Nikto Jedi. There's Mace Windu here. He looks like he's taking out a destroyer droid, but that playset's really neat as well. That's the arena playset. And we can see up over here, we have some more Genosians, including Sun Fac. And then we have the main characters over here. The main Genosian leader, his name escapes me. There's Count Dooku. And next to Count Dooku, there's Jango Fett and, of course, Little Boba there as well, watching our rebels or our Jedis getting slaughtered or beaten to death down here in the bottom of the arena before Yoda comes to save them. So up here I do have what's a nest or a hive that was from a battle pack as well. And you can see the Genosian coming out of it. It's kind of gross. Over here we have our Trade Federation table, the Separatists talking about the Death Star plans from Attack of the Clones. I love this scene. So 3 of them came in one scene. 3 of them came in another, and they both came with a half a table, and then you can assemble that table and you can put together this nice diorama over here with the background with the Separatist leaders. So a nice little close-up of them just so you can see them all. And of course next to them there's one more Separatist leader, all positioned there in the diorama. Over here on the wall, just above them, I have some of those Clone Wars Vintage Collection animated figures, so they're sitting there on the wall. There's a bunch of them there, as well as some Return of the Jedi figures there as well. There's a Kashyyyk Wookiee flyer there, hanging down. And of course, some more figures there on the wall. We'll work our way over just to show you. But that is our Attack of the Clones area of the wall here. There's Obi-Wan's Jedi Starfighter here with the hyperspace ring. Now that was a second release. The first one didn't come with the ring. And then there was news that they had a prototype version with the ring, and they released that as a Toys R Us exclusive. So it complements it very well. It sits on that thing very nicely. And I have it displayed. It's a nice display piece here with Obi-Wan piloting it. And that's how they travel through space in those small little ships. So here's our middle row over here with some more action figures displayed and some more Vintage Collection stuff in the back. But you can see there's a bunch of figures there, a lot of more modern releases that I like to display. I love these stands because they don't obstruct each other. You can have the figures, they're spice rack stands. So you can have the figures in the back row and you can still see everybody. They're not blocked in, they're not clustered together. I love having those together. There's a nice Yoda there that was from the Last Jedi line. Very nice version, best sculpt of Yoda with that head sculpt is awesome on that character there. As we work our way over here, we can see some more Jedis. There's the Rodian, the super articulated version of him that came in a 2-pack. And then, of course, some other Jedis from the Arena set. I just love the Jedi Arena set there. There's an older Luke Skywalker from an Evolution set. Could fit in nicely even fit with your Last Jedi stuff if you like them. There's Yaddle over here. And, of course, some more Jedis. There's Jania and Jason Solo. Kit Fisto here in the back. There's a concept version of Ki-Adi-Mundi over there in the back. I love that character as well with a patch on his eye. I thought that was neat. And of course, you know, a lot of characters. There's a pre-cyborg General Grievous there in the back. And you can see the Vintage Collection figures there on the wall. And there's, of course, a lot of figures there from the Clone Wars Micro Series as well. Up here on top, we have Count Dooku on his speeder as well. That's a re-release of the speeder that came with another version of Count Dooku from Attack of the Clones, but I wasn't able to pick that one up, but I do have this one from the Clone Wars, and it's still exactly the same sculpt. Next to them over here, we have the newer version of Luke Skywalker, as he appeared at the end of Mandalorian Season 2. I love that action figure, is awesome as well. As these Jedis here, there's a Klatooinian Raider. There's some more figures there, an Old Republic Rebel Trooper there in the back. There's some more Build-A-Figures. Yes, that looks like a Terminator, but it's not. It's an expanded universe character. There's a space trooper there. There's C-3PX, the assassin droid there in the back. Love these characters. And of course, background characters from episode 1. Always welcome. Very rare character from episode 1, Sio Bibble. There he is. It's probably the only time you're ever going to see this figure released. And he was released like right at the tail end of the episode 1 figures. There's a favorite of mine, Dirge. I know some of you have asked for a review of Dirge. I'd like to get to him at one point. He's got a really cool backstory and he's an awesome action figure. There's a clone trooper with the armor, removable armor there as well. Chewbacca, Embo, Cad Bane there in the back, and of course some more Clone Wars figures. Jango Fett here in the front, and of course there's Zyro's droid, bartender droid as well. And then there's a nice Darth Vader display piece that was kind of a Black Series release, kind of wasn't. He's not an articulated figure, but you can use that diorama with your characters. And of course there's Zam Weasel's speeder there as well on top. So those are the figures on the middle shelf. We're just going to pan back so you can see them all as a whole. But I love displaying those guys on those spice racks because it comes in very nicely, very clean, and you have lots of room to put them and see them. Okay, shelf on top a little bit darker, no pun intended. Here's Palpatine, Dooku, and some other of the Sith Lords that were released over the years. Here's Darth Plagueis the Wise. I love that character as well. Darth Sidious's Jedi Master. There's Darth Krayt there in the back, or Darth Krayt, however you like to pronounce his name. That's the best version that we have of Asajj Ventress over here. The Clone Wars one is a lot better than the realistic one. There's Starkiller. I love that figure with that cloak on. There's Blue Leader's droid. And of course we have Din Djarin there. And Migs Mayfield when they went in disguise. Darth Malgus. Savage Opress. Darth Revan, Darth Malak. Lots of characters here. Here's one of the sisters here. Darth Nihilus there in the back. I love having all these characters. I love how they made a whole bunch of different characters. The more obscure, the better. So I have them all displayed here on the middle shelf. Of course, vintage collection figures there in the back. There's a really neat Anakin Skywalker. That was the concept Anakin Skywalker expanded universe one with him in training. But you can see he's in a full black outfit, which is neat. Only thing missing there is the black cape, but I love that figure. He's very mysterious. Here in the front, of course, that Fennec Shand with the spotchka in her hand. Awesome one. Figrin Dan, Ahsoka. Some holographic figures there in the back of Dooku, of Commander Cody. Here's an awesome one. This is a newer figure from The Mandalorian as well, and from Obi-Wan. Shae Vizsla. And of course that Imperial Trooper there. There's an ultimate version of a Jawa in the proper paint color, and he's got a vest on and the bandolier on. Hasbro, just take this guy and give us a multi-pack. Release him in one of those 4 or 6 packs. We'll eat these guys up. It's an awesome army builder. It's a shame that he comes in a 3-pack Amazon exclusive with these 2 other guys, but he's just such a nice version of the Jawa. It's an ultimate version of the Jawa. There's Coyote Mundi there in the back, holographic form. Here's Moff Gideon with the cloth cape. So this is the one that was released at the Hasbro Pulse set. That's a nicer one with that cloth cape. It does wonders there. There's an Eopie there in the back. Some more of our Ewoks. This is the 4-pack with our Hoth soldiers with the 4 different heads. Really nice set, as well as beside them there is the clone troopers too, from their own set. And there's a Republic gunship there in the back with Commander Blee there piloting it. Yoda there, bringing them to attention over here. There's that nice little attack bubble. That was a separate set that connects to it. Such an awesome piece to connect to. And if you had 2 of them, you had 1 on each side. I just don't have the room to display it. There's a spider droid there in the back. Work our way up over here. We have a TIE Interceptor sitting there on top. We have a R2 droid there in the back. That was a Build-A-Droid from Disney. This set I love over here. This is the Droid Factory from Attack of the Clones. So it's a bunch of different sets that connect together. This one over here came with a hollow battle droid. That was like a Play-Doh set, and you can pull that droid out and you can build his chest armor with Play-Doh, but I have it just displayed in there because it connects to the other ones nicely. So rather than having him sit with a Play-Doh, I just have him sitting in there on his own. There's a destroyer droid on the top there, and you can see there's C-3PO when he got his heads mismatched. That was a deluxe set as well. It came as a 2-pack. There's a broken battle droid. That was a different release where he was battle damaged. There's Padme. And then that last piece there in the back with a butcher's knife, that's part of the arena set, but they connect together and they make that nice set going down the hallway. I love that set. It's a nice little area or play set from Attack of the Clones. Some more vintage collection or vintage original and trilogy collection figures there on the wall. And here I got some Black Series love on top. So here I got some Black Series figures displayed, as you can see, from The Mandalorian, from Rogue One, from Solo, from a whole bunch of different movies, and really nice sculpts of the characters. And I'm using those same stands, those spice racks, to display them so you can see them all. And I'll just work my way slowly over here so you can see all the figures. And I tried to keep them in a bit of a theme so you can see a lot of the prequel stuff is together over here. Obi-Wan, Maul, Qui-Gon, Padme, and then in the back there, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Dooku from Revenge of the Sith. And of course, in Attack of the Clones, Obi-Wan there as well. There's Mace Windu, there's Plo Koon, Kit Fisto, Anakin from Attack of the Clones in the back, and there's Chewie from the Solo movie with his goggles. I love that figure there as well. This is a little bit of a strange one. I had 2 Yodas, so I took his robe off. He looks a little bit odd there, but I wanted to have one displayed without the robe on. And then a bunch of clone troopers over here as well. So we can see there the figures standing nicely together. And you get some Black Series love in that collection as well. So let's just pan back there so you can see the Black Series figures. But that's how I have them displayed in the collection there. And yeah, there's not much room to put all of them in. I have some more in a different spot of the house, but that's where I have some of them displayed. Okay, so next wall over has a TIE Striker from Rogue One hanging from the ceiling. This is a neat ship, just that they had Nerf darts. And that's the only thing that's a drawback on there, is that it shoots Nerf darts instead of plastic missiles, but we can't win them all, I guess. Here I have a whole bunch of different clones displayed. So I'm going to pan over slowly just so you can see them all. I love clone troopers, as you can tell. There's so many different versions, so many unique looks or takes or slight modifications to them that make every single one unique. But they're awesome in that aspect. There's so many different versions. There's stuff from The Force Unleashed over here, from Revenge of the Sith. You know, the park speeder where they take out one of the Jedis when they're on the speeders. I have those 2 speeder pilots there. These 2 guys are from the second Force Unleashed game. Commander Keller there in the back, and of course some Kashyyyk clone troopers as well, including Gree and his crew. So I tried to keep them together. Now, next to them over here, I have what's a prize collection piece for me, is a Power of the Force original release of Luke Skywalker on card. It's not the greatest condition card, but it is a prize piece collection for me. I never had the figure as a kid. I always wanted them, and so when I got them as an adult, I never opened them, kept them on card. And then in front of them there is the vintage collection Luke Skywalker Endor from a year or 2 back. And he's sitting with he's standing with the Power of the Force 2 stand that came with the same figure from 1998. Over here we have some episode 1 prequel figures, episode 2, episode 3 that I've put together. A bunch more Padmes there. That Padme there in the front in the blue dress is a scarce figure. It's a difficult one to find. It's an awesome sculpt. And there's, of course, the wedding version of Padme. On the bottom, some Jedis here as well to complement the other guys. There's the Wookiee Senator there in the back, which is a pretty neat thing. There's Jar Jar as a Senator. They actually made 1 figure of him after episode 1, and that was it. Till the vintage collection. I love that version of Watto as well. That's from episode 2 when Anakin came back 10 years later to look for his mom. And he found Watto. It was nice to have that link to the past there. There's Dooku as he's about to get his head and wrist chopped off, kneeling down, begging for forgiveness. And of course, some more senators. There's Mon Mothma. That's the most recent one that we have from her, from episode 3. And of course, Sidious there on top. There's a Snoke there standing in the back. Dex from his diner. Elan Sleazebagano, when he was trying to sell Obi-Wan death sticks and he asked him to rethink his life. Here's a neat one there. This was supposed to be a Build-A-Figure, and in the Lost Wave they released him as a figure. That's Count Dooku's droid when he was flying the Solar Sailor at the end of Attack of the Clones. That's the droid that was with him there. They made him into an action figure. He's a pretty neat action figure there as well. We have some guys here from Kamino, Taun We, and Lama Su, and of course a clone of Boba Fett. That was a neat set there as well. yeah, just a lot of figures on there from a lot of different scenes, and that's why the Star Wars universe is so big, is because you have all these different characters or different sightings or different versions or slight appearances that we have in the movies, and they get turned into action figure form. So over here on the wall we have a Stormtrooper Commander from The Force Unleashed. That's a vintage collection one. He was released a couple times. There's a Rebels version of the Inquisitor. We haven't got a super articulated version of him yet, but of course he appeared in Obi-Wan, so I'm sure we will get one. And then a Fallen Order Heavy Stormtrooper. Here's a piece I love. We never got the Black Series Rancor funded, but we have an awesome Black Series 3 3/4 inch Rancor over here, and he's such nice detail and paint job on there. He's even got the little earring on his ear there. Look at his little beady eyes. His mouth opens and closes, and he does come with a bone as well. So you can see he's about to chomp a Gamorrean guard. There's a vintage Gamorrean guard there inside, and then there's a vintage collection one in his hand there. There's a torture rack, of course, EV-99. There's Ifant Mon, Hermiodal, a bunch of the guys from Jabba's palace, which we're going to pan over right now. There's our famous blue elephant, Max Rebo and his band. So this is my Jabba's palace display with the dancers in the back. And that is not Figrin Dan, that's Barquin Dan. Size noodles there. Love that one over there. Here's a Biomar Monk. And of course some of Jabba's court denizens. Yarna. There's Salacious over there. There's the Jedi Luke, ready to save Han Solo and his crew from the vile Jabba the Hutt. There's some more droids there behind Jabba. There's Lando. There's a Build-A-Droid figure of Jabba's protocol droid. He actually makes an appearance in Book of Boba Fett as well, walking down the street. That's my favorite version of Bib Fortuna, the one with the scary face. He's got a little dagger in the front of his chest area there that you can pull out as well. That was part of the Saga collection. There's Woof. There's Malakuli, the Rancor Keeper. And of course, there's Ula pulling her way from Jabba the Hutt. She doesn't want to be a slave anymore. This is part of the vintage collection Jabba's playset, this part over here. And then I've just incorporated that with the cardboard pop-up one to make this full scene. You can see it's got a nice little bottom base backdrop there. So it worked well together. And once we get that new set that's coming this year, the throne room, the Boba Fett throne room that can pose as a throne room for him or for Jabba the Hutt, we can probably replace this guy, this set over here. On the wall there, I've put Han Solo when he's getting defrosted there. That was a Saga release that came with the figure. I love that one with a little red tint on his carbonite block. There's a Tauntaun head on the wall there. Chewbacca with his chain when he's a prisoner. There's a favorite of mine, a Man there in the back. And of course, some more of Jabba's guys, including Ishi Tib, which is probably that one's supposed to be the rebel, but I have him in Jabba's cantina because he was in the background there as well. So that is my Jabba's palace. And of course, on top there, we have that little snail alien that you see for 2 seconds hanging off the ceiling. But again, it makes for a really interesting set. So that's my Jabba's palace. Beneath the palace here is a really neat set. This was the first Star Wars HasLab. And you can see I have my 2 pilots over here. One of them is a Build-A-Droid alien from Jabba's palace. The other one is 8D8. And they're piloting Jabba's Kitana, Jabba's sail barge. There's a Weequay there on top. And you can see the nice sails hanging over the top there. Now, what was awesome about this set over here is that you had these figures from years before that came with a cannon, including this one over here. And it actually hooks on. There's a spot for it to hook on to the railing over here on this set, because they had intended, I'm guessing, to make this set at some point or make something smaller, and it came to be at some point. But again, they did a lot of planning for Star Wars stuff over the years. I do have some lighting in here to make it look a lot nicer so it's not as dark. Of course, there's some more Jabba's goons coming out of the floor. There's Bartender R2 over here waiting for Luke. There's Luke Skywalker ready to chop down some characters. Princess Leia on the gun there, ready to blow up the Kitana. We'll work our way over here to the other side. That we have Klaatu standing on this side here with one of the cannons there as well. So you can see the detail that was put into this thing over here. We'll work our way down to the bottom part of it. Here we have Yak Face and some of the goons there. Snaggletooth. There's a nice little Rancor statue there on the back. And I've tried to keep some lighting in there. I use these They're called fairy lights in here, just battery operated, but it gives it nice lighting there in the back. Otherwise, it's very, very dark. There's Salacious pulling out 3PO's eye. That Jabba actually came with this playset, which is awesome. That's Princess Leia from the Sandstorm scene, but one thing I love about that Princess Leia is that she's got the proper coloring to her outfit with the lighter green boots and outfit that she's got on there. And next to her there is a figure I wasn't even aware of for many, many years. That is Jabba's bartender droid that was in Return of the Jedi. You can see him for 2 seconds. There was another droid besides R2-D2 with a white and red pattern, and of course he was a release, I think it was an Amazon exclusive with a bunch of different droids, but definitely a welcome addition for this playset. And you can see all the detail that's going on in the background there. There's a painting or a picture of Jabba the Hutt there on the back. So a lot of detail, a lot of love was gone into this set. As we work our way over here, we can see there's stairs that lead up, and you can see one of the skiff guards, the one that's climbing through on top here to fight Luke Skywalker. The corridor actually opens there. It's pretty neat to go up and down. We have a couple of Jawas in there, and then of course in the back we can see an area to store weapons, and there's a cooking table there to cook Jabba some food. Of course we have some more stairways that lead up to the top there. You can see that they open up as well to escape from the bottom part of this area. There is a floorboard here that does pop open. You can see the little tab there, so that does compartment does open up there. You can store somebody underneath there or trap somebody underneath there. There's a Gamorrean guard, and behind him you can see Jabba's kitchen with some of those creatures or aliens on the wall there, and there's a sink. So a lot of detail put into this set over here. There's one of the Rancor keepers as well, and there's another version of Woof. And in the back there's a jail cell with a skeleton version of a character, which we're going to take a look at in 1 sec. So we can partially open that jail cell, and if you pull that forward, we can see we do have a victim inside there. He's not a posable figure, but he's an awesome skeleton version of the Hammerhead figure that's stuck in that jail cell. And there's a big chain in there, so it's a really neat little feature that gives it some doom and gloom look in there. You can see what happens to Jabba's goons when they don't pay attention. So one thing that's neat up here, if you look on top, there's actually a trap door where you can drop them down. If we press this button over here, that trap door is going to drop down, and somebody else can fall into that dungeon below and keep that poor old Hammerhead company there in the bottom. You can see the light coming through. Such an awesome set. And then of course, getting over to the cockpit, there is an area there to get to the cockpit. It's open, so you can move your way all the way over here to these guys that are in the front there. Now there is covers that go over the Jabba's katana here that cover it all the way up. Let's have a look at those. Here's Jabba's sail barge with the panels put on, and you can see how much detail has gone into this thing over here. It's an awesome piece, and you can't even tell, just like the Millennium Falcon, that there's an inside on this guy. It's covered all the way around to the back over here. What's neat here is that it does have little panels here where Luke climbs on, where you can lift up the panels and, you know, have him fight the weak ways that are coming out through the window. So these panels do come up, a bunch of them do on the windows, so it makes for an awesome display piece, whether you like to have it open or closed. But that's Jabba's katana, and that's our first Star Wars HasLab that's part of this centerpiece of this collection. In front of Jabba's sail barge, we have Jabba's skiff guards here on the skiffs from the vintage collection over here, ready to take our heroes and throw them into the Sarlacc pit. So you can see a bunch of different ones over here on this side. You see Boba Fett ready to attack our rebels on the other side over here. There's Poe Snitkin there in the back. There's Han Solo and Chewbacca being held prisoner. Han Solo looking down into the pit of Carkoon. There's a vintage collection Weequay. There in the front, there's Kithaba on another skiff. These skiffs were awesome as well. There's Lando skiff guard, and of course some more skiff guards there in the back. And what are they looking at? Well, there's a drawbridge here. It looks like we lost somebody already. There's a tentacle sticking up, and as we work our way down, there is the Sarlacc pit, fully intact. Now, what's neat about this Sarlacc pit here, this is a bendy wire here inside the tentacle, so you can wrap a figure around it and have him in the clutches of the Sarlacc pit. He does have the special edition mouth here inside as well, with the tongue, that gross little screaming, squealing Sarlacc pit. But you can also take that piece out and just have the inside over here with the teeth. So you have a couple of options on this thing to make it the original version or the special edition version. And he comes with this nice hard plastic sand piece over here. I have it standing on a little table with a towel on it that's supposed to be sand colored, but nonetheless, that's my display diorama with Jabba's sail barge there in the back when you come into the room. And I love this piece over here. It's a famous scene from Return of the Jedi, one of my favorite scenes. And here it is. Hopefully we get the missing skiff cards that we don't have yet. It would be nice to have them as part of the collection as well. So just next to Jabba's sail barge here, we have a mini rig. This is from the original Star Wars releases. This one is missing the one accessory that has the cover going on top. I have this one here. I always loved this one as a kid. This is the one that was always pictured with Boba Fett. It's a nice little mini rig there. Most of the stuff is intact on it, as you can see, but it is missing that attachment there that's got the sail hanging over the top, which is commonly lost on this thing. It does have a drawbridge there that comes out of the front, which is neat, so you can reenact that scene with Luke Skywalker falling into the Sarlacc pit. I always found this one fascinating, and I wasn't able to get a complete one, but I did find this one. And it's got some rotating guns here as well on it that you can turn side to side. It turns the sails there, the direction. So a lot of love was put into these little mini rigs. Just on top here, we do have a Micro Machines version of the Kitana, which is neat there. I have it sitting on the back. It's like its little brother. And then next to that is one of the original sculpts of the skiff. So that is one that was originally released in the Power of the Force, but that's not a Power of the Force one that I have there. That's the Power of the Force 2 one that came many years later, and I got this one with the Sarlacc pit. There's a vintage Reese there standing on top of it. Just behind him there's some Star Wars droids figures. There's an R2, there's a Boba Fett, there's some more figures there on the wall. There's also the C-3PO droids figure, and on top of him there we do have some Empire Strikes Back vintage collection figures. And you can see Grand Moff Tarkin, Han Solo from the Power of the Jedi line. I love that one with the Stormtrooper belt. I know he's pre-posed, but I love that figure. There is an Empire Strikes Back Bespin Guard as well. Here is a special version of Yak Face, Salt Marine, that came with the Jabba's sail barge. We'll take a look at him. Here's the Yak Face that came with Jabba's Katana, the HasLab. It was a stretch goal. Here he is on card. You can see it's an unpunched card. He comes on the Star Wars Power of the Force card back. I love this. It always looked very, very different from Star Wars when this item came out. It's like the other toy line from the 80s there, Chrysalis, special collector's coin. So he came with a coin. He is exactly the same figure that you can get in the vintage collection, except that he comes with a cup in packaging there, so you can see that. He does have his weapon. He's an ultimate sculpt of Yak Face. I love that it says Yak Face on the name pill here and not Salt Marie. So that's the special version of this character that was a stretch goal. We're going to flip around to the back to have a look at that as well. So on the back here, we can see that he's VC number 000. So he's a special release that's separate from the line. But if you are a completist, you definitely need to have this character. There's a nice little bio on Yak Face there. Here he is hanging out on the skiff with Reese, one of Jabba's goons. And then, of course, down here on the bottom, it gives you a little bit more information on the coin that he comes with, special Star Wars coin. And then, of course, that is the HasLab release of this character, Yak Face. Now, we're going to do this video in two parts. This will be part one. We're going to stop here. It's going to be the halfway point. I think the video is a little bit long as it is already. If you've stuck around and enjoyed this run through on Star Wars with me, I thank you for that. Hopefully you're as passionate as I am. It takes a lot of work to put these videos together, and it's a lot of passion involved and a lot of stuff going on over the years, and I try to make it exciting where I can. I hope that it is. Please comment below. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And this will be part one, and I'll be making part two, but we'll release this guy over here, and hopefully that you guys have stuck around this far and enjoy it, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.